Good evening and welcome to another episode of A Scotsman Talks To. Oh my goodness, my studio walls are showing. What happened there? Obviously, I've knocked my camera. Well, welcome to another episode, folks. It's another week. It's another wonderful day. I don't know where you guys are, but we're having fantastic weather, nice and sunny. And tonight, while you sit in your homes supping on wine, maybe I don't know, after munching down on a lovely barbecue, you can sit back, relax and enjoy another episode of A Scotsman Talks To with another wonderful guest. Now, August is traditionally Fringe month in my life. Coming from Scotland, working in Edinburgh, it's the Edinburgh Fringe, 26 days of mayhem. And then I come to Canada and again, I believe what is classed as the second largest Fringe in the world is on in August as well, and that is the Edmonton Fringe. But it didn't happen. None of them happened. Nothing happened. The world just stopped. It all ended. Catastrophe, disaster, mayhem. But we're still here trying to do our thing. So I have designated every episode of A Scotsman Talks To in August to a Fringe performer. Now, to be honest, I'm not going to lie to you. They're just performers. So don't start bowing down and getting all overly excited. They are wonderful performers like myself. They do everything. It just so happens these are people I've met or know through the Fringe. And my first guest, I adore, actually. I'm not going to lie. There has been a few beverages taken over tables and chats and conversations into the wee hours of the morning. There has been a few staggering he's probably going to hate me for saying this, staggering meanders through the Fringe grounds after a late night drinking. And I love this man because he's a performer, a gentleman after my own heart. He loves Sherlock Holmes. He loves Charles Dickens. His knowledge on them is far superior than mine. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our first August episode of A Scotsman Talks To, the fabulous, the wonderful, the incredibly well-dressed. I'm just going to say this. He's the best-dressed guest I've had on the show, John Huston. Welcome him to the show. John.
Calum.
Is
Best dressed.
Is that a martini, sir?
It is indeed with three olives because I need my salad.
Is that what the class is a dirty martini? I hear this expression and I never know what it means.
It means there's a little bit of olive juice in it. And I like to say and of course there's no ice, so it's straight. So I like to say I like my martinis like I like my women, wet, straight and dirty. But
getting straight in there.
Well, after best dressed guest, I thought that I'm being interviewed by a natural poet, and so I better get straight out of the gate with some sort of aperçu. Anyway, it's lovely to see you, Mike. And thank you for that very gracious introduction. And I was remembering when you were some of those, and I actually can still remember some of those nights, which is a miracle in and of itself. In Edmonton, and we have a show we were going to be doing. I know, and well, it'll happen next year.
It has to happen at some point. The world can't stay closed, and
Okay.
You are a man that I've now known for just, in fact, it probably is 4 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I'm now here 4 years, so it would be my first year in Edmonton. I met you, and we got on like a house on fire. And as I say, that delightful, bizarre Korean pizza bar, which everyone loves, Fringe goer goes, what, Steel Wheels, is just the place to gather late at night in Edmonton after your Fringe show.
Yes. Well, it's open till 3 a.m. So,
but it sells awful drink.
Yeah, yes, indeed. But terrific. The Gogoki pizza. And the chicken and broccoli was always a big thing.
It was the spring rolls. I loved their spring rolls. I think everyone devoured their spring rolls. It was just crazy.
Yeah. It's. Have you ever been there when it isn't Fringe? Because it's a totally different vibe.
I walked in once and kind of went, "Oh, this is just weird." This doesn't feel the same.
Yeah, no, this is not my scene. I'm out of here. But yeah, it's funny going to a place that you know really well for 2 weeks out of the year, and then and it's like, but there are no tents and there are no crowds of people and there is no there and there's yeah yeah I
Yeah.
really I've been in Edmonton a number of times, not at Fringe, and it's a terrific city, but really Edmonton at Fringe is that's when you want to be in Edmonton.
Well, that's it. And I believe you did Edinburgh as well, if I
No, I
remember.
never have. I was that's it's on my list. Part of the problem is it happens, as you said, the same time as Edmonton. It's like, well, I can't really forego the money I make in Edmonton to go to a city where no one knows me, and I will, I mean, Melanie Gall, bless her, she does very well there, I think, and always has. But it's I can't sort of give up something that's a sure thing, and of course, seeing people and friends that I see every year for something that is going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm starting at square one again.
Yeah.
That
No,
said,
I agree with you, John. Edinburgh's Mayhem. Melanie's actually coming on the show in 2 weeks.
oh lovely, oh lovely.
But
Good.
no, Edinburgh, I always say to people from over here, if you're doing the fringes over here, you don't need to go to Edinburgh and lose money. Just stay where you are and enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends in Edinburgh, who said, "Oh, you can stay with us,"
Yeah,
and of course, it's such a magnificent city.
it's beautiful.
And yeah, and I remember the show I saw you in that first year. You were telling stories about Scottish history. You were just taking requests from the audience,
Yeah.
and I went to see it with Natalie Frehia, Bikeface, and
Oh,
after
yeah,
she
she's
said,
wonderful.
"You were a street guide in Edinburgh," she said, "I was on your tour," and that was I thought, yeah, that's Fringe. You're going to
Yeah.
bump into people you didn't realize you knew from halfway around the world.
Yeah. Well, that was my Madman show. I remember a lot of performers came to that, and it was
Mm.
Bremner Hunter, Bremner, what's his name?
Bremner Duthie.
Yes, the singer. Yeah.
Yeah.
He walked up to me and shook my hand after and basically went, "You're a madman," and walked away, leaving me standing on stage going, "Was that a compliment or not?"
It is. Oh, yeah. Now, Bremner. Now, there's someone I miss. I really miss seeing like his shows. There's a wonderful singer, terrific repertoire of stuff, and a really fine actor as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I remember seeing him in Calgary. But you know what, John? We're getting ahead of ourselves here. Firstly, I should say Elaine is saying hello, and Sarah Stewart, Angus and Sarah Stewart are
Oh
saying
yes,
hello.
my cousins. Hi guys. Yeah. I'm
But
also not seeing this summer because I'm not in
oh,
Edmonton.
I know. So I think just to get things started, before we start rambling, reminiscing, and having fun, I feel it's only fair to those who may not know you. Heaven forbid that somebody doesn't know you. But
Yeah,
would you like to just introduce yourself and tell the world a wee bit about yourself?
sure. I always open these sorts of things by saying I'm Canada's longest touring Fringe performer, which is mostly true. I mean, I'm the longest one who's still doing it. My first Fringe was in 1990 in a little town called Manotick, Ontario, which no longer exists. Ottawa, it was a suburb of Ottawa, and then Ottawa did their festival, and that was it for Manotick, which was too bad. It was a lovely little place, and I met a lot of uh, had really good times. So that was where I met the Arrogant Worms, and can't remember who else now was there who's still around. Not very many people. And I do mostly one-person shows. My company is called By the Book Productions
Oh,
because my shows are usually adapted from short stories or novels. I've even done one that's based on a collection of Canadian poems called The Flying Bull and Other Tales. So that's me. I often tour more than one show at a time. I sometimes do shows with other people and then my own solo show at the same time. I've done about 50 shows well, this would have been 30 years of fringing. And during the rest of the year, I also act. I do Christmas Carol in December. I recreate shows given by Charles Dickens. I do Christmas Carol as told by Charles Dickens, very much as he used to do it in the 1800s. So that's pretty much me, and I'm very fond of martinis and red wine, and there will probably be a single malt scotch appearing at some point on this screen. possibly on both screens.
Well, no, actually, I am sealed up, and I generally try not to drink anymore because
Oh,
my studio gets so warm, it's not a good thing.
mm, fair enough.
Now, interestingly enough, Charles Dickens, when we're just talking previously about Edinburgh, John,
Mhm.
would work because Dickens did visit Edinburgh because he married a woman from Edinburgh. So that would be a great thing for you to take over there because
Yes.
nobody does it.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Because I've got two Dickens shows. I've got Christmas, and then I have a show I called Murder He Wrote, and it's the murder of Nancy. That was Dickens. It was just this huge hit near the end of his career as a he called them readings, but his one man show career. He did the murder of Nancy from Oliver Twist, and it's always interesting when if people know Oliver the musical but haven't read the book, and they'll come up to me after and say, Dickens really read that? Because it's full on blood and gore and horror. And I go, oh yes, the Victorians weren't really wild about sex, but they had no problem with all kinds of violence.
Oh, they loved it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And of course, Dickens wasn't really a Victorian. We forget that he was born and lived his young adult life in the Regency period and in the Georgian period, which was a very different time. I mean, and even the Victorians, as we think of them, really didn't get underway until sort of midway through her reign. And about 1850s is when things really started to get, uptight and strict and prurient. And that, of course, is because of Albert. She married a German,
Oh,
and
yes.
she was apparently quite a fun-loving young woman. And then she married this rather dour, very solemn, serious young man, and all that kind of went by the boards. So yeah, so early Dickens in particular is it even though it is literally Victorian, it was written during her reign. Its flavor is much more of the 18th century, and cockfights and bare knuckle boxing, and it's a grittier, oddly, I'm going to say more urban time, even though it was, of course, England was still very rural at the time. But it really is there's a different feel to it, and it's great to perform it. It's so different from Christmas Carol. Which I love doing. I've done literally hundreds of times. But Sykes beating Nancy to death, and Dickens describing it, the blood is flying everywhere. Wow. Okay, this is a long way from consider yourself.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I mentioned earlier, you and I talked about doing a show, and I'm going to talk about that. Both you and I are fascinated by mythologies and
That is
mythological
correct.
tales.
Yeah.
And I years ago thought, oh, it would be great to do the Norse myths because they're written for this kind of climate, right? When the bad guys are the frost giants, I don't think there's a Canadian alive who can go, yeah, that's right. It's the frost giants. Those are the ones to look out for. And then you and I were chatting one night, and it turned out you thought the same thing. And so that's a show coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. Once we can organize our lives.
Yes, and who's closer than 6 feet apart.
Yes.
But I think the idea was we're going to do creation to Ragnarok. We were going to do the whole panoply of Norse myths. That will be a fascinating challenge and a lot of fun to do.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. I think that I look forward to trying to. Of course, the challenge that I discover here is it's not just organizing a show; it's distance. It's trying to work on shows in, even ignoring COVID. It's the sheer vastness of this country is crazy, and I still struggle with it.
Yes, well, and it doesn't help, of course, that the Greyhound is shut down, and the only way to get around now, in many cases, is to fly. I love taking the train, but it's no longer possible, for example, to take the train from Toronto to Calgary. There's no longer passenger rail service to Calgary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian Mulroney, for screwing that up for us all. So you've got to fly, and that's expensive.
Mm.
And
it's cheaper for me to fly from Calgary to Glasgow, or sorry, Calgary to I think it's Heathrow up to Glasgow than it is for me to fly across Canada to save to yourself. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it really is, and flying is so awful now. It truly is the worst way to travel. I one of the people I have performed 4, I do house concerts of Dickens, where Dickens will come into someone's home and they'll bring in
Wonderful.
30 people or 40 people. These people had the largest house I've ever performed in, 70 people, to see me do Christmas Carol. And this guy, and I can't think of his name, but the cool thing about him is he's mentioned in the Da Vinci Code. He's a world famous expert on cryptograms and
Oh,
ciphers.
wow.
Yeah, and works for works for various, I think, government agencies in the States and whatnot. Anyway, he
Oh,
talked about to me years ago about, he says, oh yeah, it's security theater. He says all this stuff, taking off your shoes, that doesn't make you any more secure. That doesn't stop. He says it doesn't make the plane any safer, but the public perception is it does, and so that's why they do it. And I thought that would be an interesting show to do.
yeah.
Except I strongly suspect that it might be there's probably some sort of thing about, no, you can't say that because it's you're giving away trade secrets, or you're going to discourage people from flying, or I don't know.
I don't know, because if you've ever read Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club,
Yeah.
he dispels, or jokingly dispels, a lot of the airplane myth. Which is quite fun. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's not talk about other people. He doesn't need any
No,
airtime.
exactly. But that would be, I think that might be a really interesting show. And I'm sure a lot of people would buy into seeing something like that, because we all hate flying now.
Oh yeah.
Because of all the rigmarole.
It's just too much. I actually haven't flown now for about 4 years. I'm quite happy with that. Three something. I can't remember. It's been a while, and I'm delighted. In fact, when I came out to, I was out in Petersburg, out your neck of the woods, a few years back, and I drove across country because I thought that would be fun.
Yeah.
2.5 days.
Yeah, Ken Brown and I did that last year when we were doing Sherlock Holmes. We did the 2 Sherlock Holmes stories out east, and then drove back to Edmonton to rehearse Sign of 4, and I finally saw a moose in the wild. A cow and 2 calves.
Yes.
But the really interesting thing was, when we were driving out, we went through northern Ontario, and about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we're the only people on a 2-lane highway at that point, and all of a sudden this thing comes out of the woods, and I go, "That's a big dog. That's not a dog." And Ken and I both said, "That's a lynx."
Wow.
Yeah, and you just never see those, apparently. I mean, especially like crossing the road. Like, it just kind of trotted across, and it was gone. It was all there for about three or 4 seconds, but we were quite close to it. It was unmistakable what it was, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. I have never seen a lynx in the wild. I've seen a lot of things. I mean, that's the great thing about this country, right? There's still so much out. There's still so much there. That even in your car you can see moose and mountain sheep and elk, and just doing their thing.
Yep. Yeah, I love it. I've done many, but let's get a question in, John.
All right.
Let's tell the world about you, because the way I formulated these questions, I've kind of based it very loosely, and you'll be familiar probably with Joseph Campbell, The Hero Journey.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So I've kind of just taken that formula, because it makes just a very simple interviewing technique, and I don't want to go and bombard my guests. So the first and most important question, and if it is the only question I get to ask, which has happened, is this.
Yes.
How did it all begin? Where did your journey into performance, into this start, and how did it progress until we are where we are now?
Well, let's see. Well, I was 5'8" at a church nativity pageant, and I thought, this is really cool. I had these enormous wings that my mom made, these huge, beautiful paper wings, angel wings. I thought, this is just amazing. I would like to do this. And then, strange enough, I was going to I was attending a church in Toronto where a lot of people from the CBC, a lot of artists went. Adrian Clarkson was a member of the congregation, and one of the fellows in the congregation was named Don McGill, and he was an actor and director with the CBC, and he said, "I want to do Christopher Fry's The Boy with the Cart, and I want you to be the boy with the cart." And it's a story. It's a fascinating play. It's actually Richard Burton created the role of Cuthman, the boy with the cart, in like the 1920s or 30s or something. I mean, he was a kid, and it's this beautiful play in sort of blank verse. Christopher Fry wrote all these marvelous sort of mystical plays about gods and spirits and saints and whatnot. And this is about an English saint who was a bit simple, and in the whatever century it was, I think it was the 7th century or something, he was going to build this little church in his town, and a miracle occurred. They were trying to put it up, and the principal main post that would support the roof fell down and got jammed between the walls, and they couldn't move it. That was it. Like there was nothing they could do. And then Cuthman comes on stage because he's been left alone in the church, just beside himself, because this project he has is never going to happen now. And he comes in and he says, I was standing there, and this person just kind of walked in, and he was carved from light, is how Cuthman describes him. And he laid his hand on this pillar that's jammed between the walls, and it righted itself. And I said to him, who are you? And he answered, I was a carpenter. And so this is the first, right, and that's more or less how the play ends. And there's a chorus of the people of South England, and it was a beautiful play, and it wound up not happening. And I learned the entire role, and it was a pretty big part for a 12-year-old kid. But I'd learned the whole role, taping it and then playing the tape at night as I was lying in bed. I don't know why I thought this would work, but it did. And so that was sort of how it got. That was sort of how it got started. And then it was after that. It was the Fringe came along, and I thought, wow, I can do anything I want. Really? Wow. And I was reading a book called Three Men on a Boat, and I had done a little excerpt at a party. I was working as the stage doorman at the Royal Alex Theatre. And while Les Mis was on, and they used to have these parties, and they would just say, come on, everyone come. And it was a Les Mis cabaret night, and they said, oh, anyone can do anything they want. So I did this bit out of Three Men on a Boat. Mm-hmm. Do you know the story? Do you know the book?
I know the book, but I don't think I actually fully know the story.
Yeah, it's these three Englishmen, and they punt up the River Thames from London to Oxford. And Jerome K. Jerome, who wrote the book, was also a playwright and an actor, and he fills it with all these really silly stories about their misadventures on the river and things that he remembers. And there's a story he tells about being at a party, and everyone is in their best dressed clothes, and they're all pretending that they're very cultured and very elegant, and these two young students are there from the university, and they didn't really belong here, and and I'm sure they felt intimidated by us. And these two young kids say, "Hey, do you know what? This great German singer, musician has just arrived. He's a guest at the party, and he does this incredible German comic song, which I'm sure you all know." And of course, oh yeah, yes, of course. Well, he's going to sing it in the. It's just astonishing. It's the funniest thing you'll ever hear. And of course, I don't speak German. Actually, I learned it at school, but forgot it all once I'd left, and it felt much better ever since. Of course, I didn't want to admit that to anybody there, and so everyone gathers to watch this song, and Jerome's character hits on the idea. I came up with a rather clever idea. I would keep my eye on the students, and when they'd laugh, I'd laugh. And when they'd chuckle, I would chuckle. I even threw an occasional titter in myself, which I thought was rather artful of me, as if I'd seen a bit of humor that the others had all missed. As the song went on, I could see others were doing the same thing. And Herr Schlossenboschen, of course, is performing this song. And as he begins to play, it didn't really sound like a comic song. In fact, had we not known, we might have thought it was something deeply tragic. But we said, it's the German method, and prepared to enjoy ourselves. And of course, it turns out that no, it's in fact this, deeply tragic song And Herr Schlossenboschen, swears at he swore at us all in German, which I gather is a very effective language for that.
Yes.
And then he told us all the English he knew. And anyway, so that went over very, very well. And I thought, well, if it went over well at this, I'll take it to the Fringe. So I then proceeded to make the rest of the book into a 1-hour show. And in fact, that was in my repertoire for years. I haven't done it recently because the characters are all in their 30s, and I've got too much gray hair now to really make that work. But
be grateful for the hair.
It's funny. All the Huston men, except for myself, are bald. It runs in the family. I'm the only, and I'm the shortest Huston man. So I said it's because I'm short, people can see if I'm bald or not, and that's why I still have hair. They're all like my kid brother is 6'4". You can't tell if he's bald; he's too tall. So yes, so that was how it got started, and then it was just okay. Well, that was great. I can make a living doing this. Yep. What's the next book? And it was The Flying Bull and Other Tales, which no one has ever heard of. My grandmother used to read it to me when I was a kid. Imagine the Decameron as written by Robert W. Service. It's only instead of a bunch of people in a castle because there's a plague outside, it's a bunch of guys in Manitou, Manitoba, a small town in Manitoba, and there's a blizzard outside, and the Grey Goose bus has stopped running, and so all the guys are in the tap room drinking and telling stories. So The Flying Bull is not only about a bull who does fly, but it's also the bull that flies around the room as these guys drink and tell stories, and it's all in verse.
Nice.
Yeah. Trapped by the blizzard as it fell in that old Manitou hotel, we sat and smoked and sat around the fire and watched the birchwood flames leap higher and told tall yarns to while away the dull, interminable day. There were a dozen at the least, a cattle drover and a priest, 2 Mounties, both extremely tall, a sergeant and a corporal, and it goes on from there. I haven't done that show in 25 years now, so I still remember that.
I'm actually very impressed with. I always have been with your capability to maintain a lot of that, those readings and recitals that you've always done.
Well, I think it's great when you start in your 20s and 30s, right? Your mind just takes impressions like wax. As you get older, like once I hit 40, I actually have to kind of go back now and look at anything I've learned after the age of 40. I have to go back. Anything before that, no, it's still there. It's
really, I know that feeling.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like last summer, I did a remount of Underneath the Lintel, which I had done 12 years before, and it came back very quickly. Good. But I had to look at it again. It isn't like I could just walk on stage and do it. Whereas I've got roles I did in my early 20s that I could walk on stage tonight and do, and that's very strange. The human memory. But I mean, every actor I know says the same thing usually. Wonderful. And I feel really badly because I have met those actors. I'm sure you have too, who have to go back and relearn from scratch. And it's no reflection on their ability, obviously, as a performer. But I know how some of them have said how annoying they find it sometimes I've done this before. I can't remember any of it.
Yeah. But, So continue your journey. So you started doing this. You started with a couple of fringes. Yeah. How did it progress?
Well, 1994, I was touring Murder, He Wrote by Charles Dickens. And I had done a show my first year when I was doing 3 Men in a Boat called Live Sex Show Llamas, and Live Sex Show Llamas had a stripper in it, and it was 2 guys and a stripper, and the fellow who had written the show, his touring partner wasn't available. He said, "John, do you want to come do this?" And that was when I decided I would A, start doing fringes because it's work, and B, I would do a solo show just in case. So I'm doing this, lovely Victorian comic show, and then I'm doing this really strange thing with a stripper, and she's a very nice young woman from Montreal, who unfortunately was going through a heroin withdrawal at the time. So that was, if you've ever seen the movie H, it was kind of like
No,
that.
I've
It
not
was,
seen that one, but
yeah,
okay.
it was pretty grim. I gather one of the effects of withdrawal is you get these painful, painful muscle cramps and nausea and all of this. So she bless her heart, she never missed a show and she was always there giving 100%. But off stage, it was just
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was year one on the Fringe. By year three, I said I'm doing Charles Dickens, Murder He Wrote, and some friends of mine, the Wannabes, and they started as a 7-person sketch fest, if you can, a sketch group, if you can imagine, on the Fringe, and this was just after it used to be Edmonton Fringe, and then there was Edmonton Fringe and Vancouver Fringe, and there was Edmonton, Vancouver, and Winnipeg, and then all of a sudden in 1991 or two, every single city in between kind of got one, Saskatoon and Toronto and Manotick and all these little festivals. And suddenly you could do this Montreal, you do this massive tour from Montreal to the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what they were doing. And they were doing a show called Three Young Hitlers in a Baggie, or 1313 Cecilia Boulevard. Now, they've gone from 7 people in their first year, they've gone down now to, I think it was 4 people, which is a little more, doable in terms of the finances. And they would have guest walk-ons at the end of the show. And the idea the story was about 3 roommates, and there was this one roommate you never saw. He was always off stage. His name was Dale, and periodically they'd say, "Hey Dale, there's mail for you." "Hey Dale, telephone." And then from off stage, one would say, "Okay, got it." And Dale just kept always getting these phone calls, but you never saw him. So they have these celebrity Dales, right? And people would just walk on at the very end, and you'd pick up you'd be a phone call, and you come in and you pick up the phone, and there was this sort of ongoing joke about, I can't remember what it was now, but you would deliver the punchline to this ongoing joke. That was your one line, and it was blackout. So they said, "John, you can do it any way you like, just very much like doing this. It's anything I said, anything I like." I said, "Yeah, anything you like." And I remember one of the Dales, earlier Dales, had been a woman, a girl named Claire someone, and she was touring this fabulous production of The Yellow Wallpaper, one woman play based on a short story about a woman who goes mad. Mm-hmm. And she came on stage as Dale in just her corset and high black boots and a riding crop that she got from somewhere. and that was her celebrity. So I thought, okay, I have to top that. So when it was my turn, I was waiting in the wings, and I was just wearing track pants and a t-shirt. And just before I came on, I stripped off. And walked on stage naked except for a sock. And because I thought, it's a rite of passage. Back in those days, back in the 90s, there was a lot of nudity in Fringe shows, because that was how you would that's how you brought in the punters, right? People would come in for nudity. It was mostly female nudity, not a lot of male nudity. So I thought, okay, rite of passage, I've got to do a nude scene. So I walked in and did my thing, much to everyone's surprise. And that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. I having got that out of my system, I knew I didn't have to do this one in the nude. Mm-hmm. So because you would have had a nude guest this week, but no, I've done that.
Yeah, I kind of think that it works not having a nude guest on the. Mind you, no one would see. You could be nude from the waist down.
Exactly. Well, I'm actually not wearing trousers, so
I haven't worn pants for 4 months.
I was going to say you in a kilt. I mean, you've worn pants most of your life, but there
basically, I either wear a kilt or shorts. That's
the kilt is just such a great. It's just it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful.
It's very relaxing.
Yep.
It's very cooling, unless it's really warm, because obviously I wear a big heavy kilt.
Yeah.
But I like it. It takes me a bit of time to put on. But once you're there, it's just lovely to wear a kilt. I mean, I just pants, leg tight things, crotch tight things. You savages.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things I loved about being in India was I think the dhoti, those very loose, quite low in the crotch cotton and linen trousers. They were
Mhm.
so cooling, you know, in that horrific heat. You walk in and think, this is great. I am so comfy. Um, but yeah, I wore a kilt when I was younger. I was adopted by a family with Scottish ancestry, so I wore a kilt when I was younger, and it was a great thing. I went to parties and that kind of deal. Mum was they were stewards of Appin.
Mm.
Was my grandmother's my mother's mother comes from that. So anyway, I should tell you about this show I'm not doing this summer for the
Oh yeah,
Fringe. Not
please.
happening because it's in Edmonton, and the Fringe that is not happening. And our audience may not know this, but Edmonton has arranged for a Fringe that when you're in it, you're not in it as well. We're both not in it. We've been challenged to put together the show we could never do, but may have always wanted to do, and then we sell tickets for it. And if we sell enough tickets, we go into a draw, and if we win the draw, we get a free place in Edmonton next year. But the great thing is, if we sell tickets, that money, some of the money, does go to us. It is a way we can make some income during this. We can't work and haven't for months' time. I don't know about you, but the last time I worked was January. Uh,
Yeah, about
yeah,
similar.
yeah, yeah. So the show I'm doing is The 1001 Nights, and I've actually have had this in my head for years as an actual show I want to do, and I may actually get to do it. It's a three-hander. Um, Maybe even four. I mean, it's a show, but a three-hander in its current incarnation of The 1001 Nights. It's 6 hours long, but it's in six one-hour parts, just like the original 1001 Nights. So you come in, three actors, just with very simple acoustical instruments and some very basic props, you know, like a couple of swaths of colorful fabric and a mask or two, proceed to do the Arabian Nights. And you get an entire story and a cliffhanger every episode. So this is
Nice.
come back to. And when you come back, if you come back and see the following episode, we will of course give you the completion of that cliffhanger story and then another cliffhanger. So every time you come, you get an entire story and a cliffhanger. And there'll be, of course, like the Arabian Nights, there'll be romance, there'll be adventure, there'll be comedy, there'll be drama, um, and yeah, and in the tradition of storytellers, as you know, we will be passing the hat at the end of the show. There will be a free ticket to come in, and at the end, we'll pass the hat. Please give us a copper coin for our golden tail. So, yeah, so that's the 1001 Nights.
I love it.
Yeah, well, I just thought, you know, it's I've never seen anyone do it at a Fringe. I've never seen anyone do a serial before. I've seen it done over years. Like about 4 years ago, there was a group that did Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and they did it in two parts. But like part one was 1 year, and part two was another year.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Matt Busby was in it. It was done at that Baptist church that's just across from the Fringe grounds, 104th and 84th. It's a modern church.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think it's a Baptist fellowship. Anyway, and they did that. And it was a wonderful production of Tree Grows in Brooklyn, a huge cast. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. But I really honestly want to do, like, if someone wants to come and see 6 hours of The 1001 Nights with three actors just going full bore in a different story every episode, I want to give people that, because I've never seen that done at a Fringe.
Yeah, that sounds great.
You know, and I mean, great for the actors, right? I mean, imagine going into something like that as an actor, just like, okay, we're going to rehearse this massive thing, and it's going to be partly. I mean, there obviously will be room to do a little bit of improvisation, but you've got the structure of the story to hang it together. You've got to, okay, we've got to get this story completed, and we've got to get to this point at the cliffhanger, and that's it.
Yeah.
And we're done. And please give us a coin on your way out and come and see us again. It costs nothing to see. We'll just ask you for money as you go out. I mean, it's financially sounds financially crazy, but I really think that, especially with the fringe audience, you'd grab people with just the daringness of that concept of
Yeah, I like it. I like it. So, actually, taking a step back, because maybe explain a bit more about the
Mhm.
process of this fringe kind of
Mm.
concept, because people might not quite grasp what you're referring to. So, just to
Oh,
kind of
oh,
give people an understanding of what's
yeah.
happening.
What's happening is, because we can't actually do a fringe this year, we can't actually give live performances this year. We are selling tickets to this. I'm gonna do what I just did. I'm gonna pitch you on a show idea, the show that I'd like to do, and it can be pretty much anything, because for most of us, we'll probably never get to actually do this show. So if we want to bring in an elephant, I'm bringing in an elephant to a fringe show, and you go to the Fringe website, fringeadventures.ca.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, Edmonton Fringe, and you can buy a ticket to the 1001 Nights, or what's your show called for
Me,
this? Yeah.
you know what, John? I'm going to have to admit, I didn't even know about this.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding! They did, because the Fringe didn't contact you.
No,
Because they put out a mailing saying, "Okay, Fringe performers, here it is."
I'm obviously not in that mailing list, and I kind
That's
of been a bit confused because I saw a couple of posts about things, but I never got contacted, and that's a bit.
oh,
But then I'm just a lowly storyteller. I
oh my
mean,
god,
I don't do
sure.
theatre. We're below acoustic guitar players. Come on.
Ah! So it. But that is Calum, that's terrible, because I mean,
It is what it is.
you do. But yeah, so that's what you do, and you go to Fringe Adventures, and you can look at the different shows that are available and say, yeah, I'll buy a ticket to that. And you know what? While I'm here, I'll buy a beer ticket, or I'll buy some Fringe merch. Now, I believe the Fringe merch is actual genuine stuff, but
Yes,
beer
yeah.
tickets, again, it's for virtual beer. Effectively, what they're saying is, look, people of Edmonton and beyond, you come to see the Fringe every year, and you may spend, in some cases, I mean, there are people who see 50 shows.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's $500 worth of tickets right there. Come and spend some of that money, um, seeing these, like these virtual shows, because the money will go to the artists, as it would anyway. You're still supporting the artists, and in fact, you're supporting the artists at a time when, more than ever, we really, really need that support. We really need people to come out and see these virtual shows, because for a lot of us, this is our summer income.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So when
you
does
know,
this event happen then?
well, the tickets are on sale now.
Hmm.
They went on sale on the 5th of August. There will actually be content you can go and watch on Fringe TV. If you type in fringetv.ca, I
Excellent.
think
Okay, that's
it'll
another
take
good
you
one for
there.
people to look at.
Yeah, and there will be Edmonton performers, at any rate, and some people, the Cold Hearts, for example, are going to do the Unrepentant Necrophile. Have actually adapted their shows for this kind of format, and so there will actually be things you can watch. There will be, as there always is at the Fringe every year, there will be a big finale put on by the street performers. So there is going to be actual things you can see and watch online. Um, so kudos to Edmonton for coming up
Oh
with
yeah,
that.
that's awesome. I'll
Yeah,
now need to chase up Murray and see why I never received an email now
yeah.
though.
Yeah. Well, and see, I mean, because you are a storyteller, I think they are still possibly looking for Fringe TV content.
Okay, I'll have a look at that.
And the late night cabaret, I know, is doing some kind of digital thing as well. So give them a shout, because this is absolutely, our audience, we hope, are out there
Yeah.
uh, looking for us. The Fringe, they're having like a $3 million shortfall this year.
Oh,
So I believe it is. So so they're, as I say, they're looking to get people to spend at least some of the money they normally would spend at the.
yes. No, that's great. And that's a very valid point you've just made as well. The shortfall.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying things will get back to normal next year or later this year, but I think a lot of people are forgetting that maybe not for the arts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
the arts are taking such a huge hit that things are shutting down and things may not recover. There's a lot of festivals and events that may not recover next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they live year to year, hand to mouth.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there just isn't a contingency fund big enough to keep them going.
Yeah.
I like to think that people like us, we're like the little mammals running around after the big asteroid hit, like the dinosaurs, the large festivals that may not make it, and we are, we hope that we'll be able to just to keep finding crumbs long enough that once the asteroid impact is over, that
Yeah.
we'll be able to come back. But there's no question that having festivals in place like the Fringe are really key to a lot of that survival for us.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, very much. So I just hope
they
that we
give us
don't
the
turn cannibalistic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm lucky. I think that I do have some dates booked at Christmas now at the Gladstone Theatre in Ottawa to do Christmas Carol. Unfortunately, that's a show people like to come and see every year. And I will be offering a lot of pay what you can performances this year, because I will recognize that there will be people say, I'd love to see it, but I can't afford a $25-$30 theater
Yeah.
ticket. And say, yeah, and that's perfectly valid, and I completely understand that. So look, I'm doing a pay what you can on these days. Come and give me $5 or or whatever you can afford, because I'd like an audience again. And
Yeah.
I'd like to share that story because that is what Dickens did with it. I think to some extent, especially with Christmas Carol, I owe the author and I owe his vision and his spirit of the story to give back where I possibly can. That won't be quite as easy this year, perhaps, but there's still going to be room. There has to be room for that. There have to be room.
Oh, yeah.
To say, no, audience, look, just come in. Just come in. A buck is fine. Just come in.
Yeah, that kind of there is something to be said. As much as we don't like, I don't want to sound awful, but we try not to give our art and craft away for free.
Yeah.
But even just that, if you put a hat out, quite often people will throw $5-$10 in. Because they know, as long as they know they're getting value for money, they may not have the money, but they'll try and give something. And that's something I've always really found amazing about the audiences. I've done a few free events, free fringes in the past. They didn't quite work out, but that was due to the actual promoters' marketing rather than my own.
Yeah.
But it's amazing how people are just like, no, we want to pay what we can just to help,
Yeah, exactly.
And it's wonderful. The tour I used to do in Edinburgh that was actually a free tour.
Oh.
All the tours I did in Edinburgh, they were free walking tours, and I used to tell the audience it's free. At the end, you decide if it's worth anything, and you decide what it's worth. And I never went hungry.
Yeah, that's right. And it's interesting. In fact, there's a website, I can't remember what it's called now, that does exactly this, where you can put a show on, people can go on this website, book a ticket for a nominal fee, and then at the end, having seen the show, they can then go back and contribute more. And the fellow who put it together said he discovered as a performer that people were willing to pay more at the end, having seen the show and gone, wow, that was totally worth $10, $15, $20, whatever it is. With Christmas, Christmas Carol. I like to say it's please put a penny in the old man's hat.
Yeah.
And certainly I found if you, as our busking friends do, and as you did with your tour, if you pass the hat at the end of the show, that's the time to do it, because people have seen, gone, wow.
Yeah, that's it. Give them value for money, make them happy. Then people are always that wee bit more willing just to say, oh, we now know what this is, we'll pay.
Yeah.
Although exactly. I will say one thing, I really hope that the free fringe concept doesn't come over here, because it became an absolute slaughterhouse in Edinburgh.
Oh yes, yeah, I've heard about it. But
Edinburgh Fringe has got your Edinburgh Fringe, and then it's got something like 8 internal fringes going on inside it. And I think there's now 4 free fringe shows.
Wow.
Or free fringe vendors. So if you imagine 5,000 shows and maybe 2,000 of them are free, people are kind of going, nah, I'll just go see the free stuff, because they don't even need to tip if they don't want to, you know, so.
Wow.
It's a weird one. But anyway, let's
Yeah,
not get maudlin and
no,
things like that. You know, it is what it is. People are wonderful. I love what you do, John. I really do. I've always
thank
enjoyed the fact that you do take on these literary kind of giants and really kind of get stuck into them. I've seen you do Sherlock Holmes, which I loved.
Oh yeah,
That was
Darren and I
wonderful.
had so much fun with that.
Yeah. But I have a question.
Yeah,
So you've done a lot of solo shows and you've done a
yeah,
lot of shows with people.
yeah.
Do you prefer just being able to rely on yourself, or do you love the camaraderie of doing a show with other people, even though there's more elements, shall I say, that could go awry?
Yes. Well, of course, the esurient egomaniac part of me, that that like Bottom wants to play all the parts and more, that wants the money, all the money. Really likes doing solo shows, and I never do just a show with other actors. I will always do a solo show as well, because of course the brutal finances of fringe touring are just that way.
Yes.
But I love working with other people. I mean, last summer I got to work with Ellie Heath and Ken Brown again. And Ken and I have now done a number of shows together. And this year we were going to do Treasure Island
Mm.
as a two-hander, and that was
Oh,
just
amazing.
so much. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun, right?
Now you're hitting into another one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, Stevenson. Yes, yes.
Yes.
I should do some of his ghost stories. He did some lovely Thrawn Janet. Do you do that? You must do Stevenson's stuff.
I know. I kind of avoid a lot of those literary things like that because you know, I do the stories, the folk tales, the myths, the legends, the personal stuff.
And you do them really, really well, my friend.
And I have a story about Dickens, but it's a kind of more personal account about how A Christmas Carol came into existence,
Yes.
an encounter he had in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
But I've kind of avoided kind of doing the what you do, although it always fascinates me and I'd love to do. Like, for example, I would love to do a really fun Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Jekyll and Hyde. It's one of my favorite books, or
Yeah.
can't really call it a book, it's story, because it's
Yes. It's actually one of the ones on my list as well. Back in 2004, a young fella came through. He was, oh golly, was he from England? I want to actually whittle if I want to say he was from somewhere in Europe, but I don't think that's right. I'm sure he was from England. Anyway, he did a just magnificent barn burner of an adaptation of Jekyll and Hyde. But it is one of those stories where people going in, it's like doing, say, Dracula or Treasure
Yes.
Island or Sherlock Holmes. Your eyes goes in knowing what they're going to go and see, or Christmas Carol for that matter. It would be really interesting, actually, to see you do it because your take and my take would obviously be very different, even though we're working from the same material. There's actually another one I sort of got in my mind is the picture of Dorian Gray.
yes,
Yeah.
yep, wonderful.
And I kind of know how I would do that. Like I sort of got it in my head. I find if I'm one of the things that makes me decide, yeah, this is the work, is I will get a very, very strong, usually single image in my head of something. When I did Screw Tape, based on the Screw Tape letters, I'd read the book and I thought, this is sort of interesting. It might be an interesting show, but how would you do it? It's just, it's wordy. And then some friends of mine saw a production on Broadway, and I actually found a clip of this production. It was an Englishman doing it very much Screw Tape in a wingback chair and a smoking jacket, and he had a little kind of greebly demon taking notes with a quill pen. And he was doing the Lewis text, and I watched this and I thought, that is so wrong. And I thought, why am I saying this? I said, I don't know, but it's wrong. Oh, because now I understand how I'm supposed to do it, and it's not this.
Yeah.
And I realized it's got to be, and again, this was just how I was going to do it and how I did it. It's got to be modern, right up to the minute. They're not letters. Of course, he's wearing Google glasses and he's talking live on Bluetooth to Wormwood, and he's also, Lewis wrote a sequel to Screw Tape, the Screw Tape letters, called Screw Tape Proposes a Toast, and I took elements of the toast. So I'm dictating the toast to my secretary, I forget his name offhand, and also talking to Winwood and going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth between these two things. And that was the first time I had a costume custom made. And I had a power suit made because, of course, hell is, as Lewis describes it in the book, it's a corporation.
Yes.
And curiously enough, the only when I took it to the Ottawa Fringe in 2015, and I think there were 7 reviews for that at that point. And of course, it's Ottawa, right? Everyone's used to seeing the Mandarins in Ottawa, and that was the only time where every single review talked about the suit. And they recognized that this was a power suit, and I thought, good, that was money well spent, because these people see well-dressed, custom-suited guys all the time, and they recognize it when they see it, and that's who Screwtape is. Of course, right? He's an executive at the world's nastiest corporation, and he's constantly looking over his shoulder to make sure his nephew isn't trying to screw him over.
Yeah,
and he's also trying to screw over the next person. Plus, of course, he's working on helping the damn souls, and
yeah, just a subtle little thing there.
Yeah, exactly. And the second aha moment I had, well, of course, I rewrote Lewis's text quite substantially. I didn't change his central arguments. What I did was update the language so that Screwtape talks about uploading ideas. Instead of the philology department, it was the boys down in marketing. So that it was, I normally am very faithful to my authors when I adapt their works. Lewis, I just said, I'll just change a bit. By the time I was finished, 3/4 of the script were my words, but it was still very recognizably Lewis. The guy who directed it for me was a former West End actor, now an Anglican clergyman. And the compliment he paid me that I always treasured on the script was, he said, he says, obviously I know Lewis didn't write about computers, but I'm really listening to your script. I don't know where you begin and Lewis ends. And I thought, great, that's the effect I want. I want people to think C.S. Lewis, even though if they think about it for a second, they go, no, wait a minute, he couldn't possibly use that phrase. That's a 2015 phrase. And I did the show only in churches, because I thought if I do it in the theater, it'll just be another play. But Lewis described the Screwtape Letters as a series of anti-sermons, and that's what my audience has to experience. And they will only have that effect if they hear this in a place of worship.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily have to be believers themselves, but they'll recognize they're in a place that is sacred. And this character is talking about damnation. And I would always finish the play in the pulpit, because my version of the play ends with Screwtape proposing his toast, and he talks about how valuable religion is to hell, because the wrong sort of religion, or from hell's point of view, the right sort of religion, damns people, because instead of thinking about the message of brotherhood and love, they think about the message of, well, no, we're better than you. You people are wrong. You people are the heretics. We need to kill you people. And it was. So it was a very interesting project. It was one I will certainly revive. But the trick is finding a church with the acoustics that are good enough that I can perform this fairly dense, wordy text and not have people going, what?
Yes. Yeah.
Most churches are big and echoey. So I try to find smaller, more intimate spaces, small chapels, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that works. Lovely.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Now, a couple of questions come in from the audience. Just very quickly. Someone obviously listened. Did you keep in touch with the Arrogant Worms?
Oh, yes, absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's funny. Mike McCormick, who is the how does he describe himself? Tall, gangly, butt-free body, I believe is how he described himself in one of the liner notes. He lives just outside of Ottawa now, and he brought his daughter and friends to see Christmas Carol.
Oh, lovely.
A couple of times at the Gladstone, and we were chatting afterwards, and he said, I'm with another trio now that does Christmas music, and we'd love to come and do. And I do the show with Christmas carols interspersed between the different chapters. And so Mike's, now the trio is called I want to say LMJ. It's their initials. And I blanked on the other names, but
That's
it's
okay.
it's a wonderful trio. Two men, one of whom is Mike McCormick, and a woman, and they do beautiful, what I like to think of as non-elevator music, Christmas carols. Glorious or traditional things. Think music Dickens would know, but that a contemporary audience wouldn't be, oh God, I've heard this so many times. It's like, oh,
Okay.
that's beautiful. Is that because there's so much Christmas music out there. And one of the rules whenever I use singers with the show, I say, you can't sing a carol written after 1870. That's the year Dickens died. And if possible, go for things that are a little more obscure. They don't have to be religious. In fact, I quite like the really bawdy secular carols of the 16, 17, and early 1800s. There's a terrific one that's and all the lads and lasses come from far and wide to shake their bums. And Christmas comes but once a year, and we have cakes and ale and beer, and all the lads and lasses come from far and wide to shake their bums. And that's a Christmas song from the early 1800s, and it's all about, ironically, the things that people complain about now with the modern Christmas. It's all about drinking and feasting and partying and getting really, really drunk. But that has been a part of Christmas, at least a part of English Christmas, for centuries. That's, of course, as you probably know, ironically, why the one time when the Puritans ran the government in England, that was the one time when Christmas was cancelled. It isn't the secularists who want to ban Christmas. It's the really religious people that do.
Well, it got cancelled in Scotland as well.
Yes, that's right.
And it was apparently, if history tells me, it was actually a Christmas Carol was one of the factors that brought it back.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Because one of my favorite moments in Christmas Carol in the story, and it's one of those moments that demonstrates how powerful it was when it was written and how far we've come since. And that is the moment when it's the end of the office day and Bob Cratchit, pinches out his candle and he's getting ready to go, and Scrooge, you'll want all day for a holiday, I suppose, if quite convenient. So it's not convenient and it's not fair. If I was to stop the day's wage for it, you'd think yourself mightily ill-used, I'll be bound. Yes, sir. And yet you don't think me ill-used. I pay a day's wages for no work. It's only once a year, sir. A poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. Bah! Suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning. And what's significant about that is Christmas wasn't a paid holiday. There was no such thing as a paid holiday.
Yes.
And what Dickens is doing so brilliantly for his readers in 1843 is, okay, people, we all know that Bob Cratchit isn't going to be paid for his time off. And yet Scrooge is bitching about the fact that he feels he has to pay his clerk for a Christmas holiday. And if Scrooge can do that, what's wrong with you? And there's a story I'm sure you know about when Dickens was giving his performances of Christmas Carol in America, and a factory owner and his wife came. I think it was in Philadelphia. And as they left, the factory owner said, "You know what? I'm going to close the factory tomorrow. I'm going to give the workers a holiday, and I'm going to give them all a turkey. I'm going to buy, everyone at my plant is going to get a turkey for Christmas." And so all of that, and that story circulated, I think, at the time, like it's contemporary more or less with Dickens' tour in the 1860s. So
yeah,
it probably did happen, or it was at least a powerful enough urban myth to get circulated at the time. So yeah, it's funny, and the very fact that nowadays we go, yeah, so you're giving them a paid holiday, so what? Shows you just what a remarkable effect that book had, because in fact you did have to work Christmas Day. It was just another day. It was barely even a religious holiday. Even when the Victorians were starting to bring stuff back, it was still not a big deal. Not a big deal. So anyway, so I'm in touch with the Arrogant Worms. Mike McCormick comes and he sings as part of this trio. at the Gladstone Theatre. I bumped into Trevor Strong again. I was doing Christmas Carol in Toronto, and I was walking down the street, and Trevor Strong was coming up the other way, and Trevor, John, and I think actually I'd finished the show, and I said, "Come on, I'm going for a drink after the show." He said, "Okay," so we got caught up. And Chris, I haven't seen in a while. I think the last time I saw the guys perform, which was maybe 4 years ago now. I think I saw them do a show in, I think it might have been Toronto, in Hugh's room, which has one of the victims of COVID is Hugh's room.
Yeah.
So I think that's the last time I saw Chris. But yeah, I'm happy to say that I'm still in touch with them. Golly, that was those early years of Mantic were just a hoot. I look back at the photos and go, we were all so young. We were just kids. I mean, Trevor's now Dr. Strong. He's got a PhD, and yeah. It's funny meeting up with these people again sometimes years later. Any other questions?
There's lots here. Okay, so Robert I'm going to say De Vrij.
Yeah, De Vrij.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Robert. I'm Scottish. I can't pronounce names. John's lucky he's got a normal name, or it'd be something weird. He's actually asking about the sock. So he's can you clarify, where were you wearing the sock?
Yes. As I recall, I think I had the sock positioned such that we could still get an R rating rather than an X1.
Love it. So you didn't accidentally put it on your head?
No.
Boom, boom.
Yes, exactly. No, it wasn't that big, but it was big enough. It was a hockey
Just
sock.
get that in there. Get that
That's
in there.
It was a hockey sock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for a toddler.
Indeed. I think trying to crack open the single malt. That's what I think. Anyway, any other questions of a sock-related nature?
Somebody is asking, how many accents can you do?
Well enough. I'm not going to attempt my Scottish accent in front of you because I don't want to humiliate myself any further. I can do sort of generic Scots and English, Scots and Irish. I can do Cockney. I can do Jewish Cockney. RP, OP, which is the original pronunciation of Shakespeare. I can do sort of generic kind of Midlands Northerner. I mean, these are all good enough for North Americans, but I have to admit I would be a little hesitant to trot some of them out across the pond. Although I've got to say, I find that the British are really very forgiving. If they know he's not from here, but he's doing his best,
Yes. Well, wait a minute. Is there ice in that?
Yeah, that's why it's not the single malt. This is
right. Okay.
The blend.
That's okay then. You're forgiven, sir. Because I would be walking or jumping in the car and coming to you.
That's right. I would think so too. Yeah. No.
Can I just confirm, where are you again? Someone's asking, are you in Ottawa?
I'm in Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. You're in Winnipeg?
I live in Toronto. I'm currently in Winnipeg.
Right. You do live. Whereabouts in Toronto? Like what area?
Midtown.
Midtown. The reason I'm asking is because it's Kat, who's a dear friend of mine who does the Paranormal Heart podcast. Oh. And she's actually saying we should start bringing back the tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas again. Yes.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, absolutely. I have a couple of ghost story shows of my own, as I'm sure, as do we all. Mine, of course, are literary rather than folk ghost stories. But in fact, I did that online. That was part of the online Fringe last.
I did watch some of that. Yep.
Yeah. Creeping Murmur Pouring Dark, I call it. But yes, I completely agree. Ghost stories at Christmas are a wonderful tradition. In fact, one of the stories I do, Smee by A.M. Burridge, is set at a house party at Christmas. And the fact, and of course, and this man is telling a ghost story about an event that happened to him at Christmas time. Yeah, now, and that's interesting. That's something that, again, in North America, people just aren't familiar with at all. I mean, we have Halloween.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I used to have a little people. I would give people like trivia questions about Christmas Carol. I'd say, okay, Christmas Carol is a ghost story for Christmas. There's another great English ghost story set at Christmas time, and it's a play. Can anyone name it? And it always takes people forever if they ever get it all. And of course, it's Hamlet. And Hamlet is a ghost story, and it is set at Christmas. And there's that Horatio.
Yeah, I would have struggled with that as well, actually. I wouldn't have put
Yeah,
that together.
well, because you don't think of it as a ghost story, even though it is.
Oh no, I always think of a ghost story. I just forgot it's set. It's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because there's that marvelous speech that Horatio has. I think it's Horatio about this time of year is when the spirits walk because the nights are long, and there's something about there's some reference to being because it's Christmas as well. There's some reference to that. For some reason, it supposed to encourage the spirits to walk around, and of course you then look at Gertrude's speech about Ophelia committing suicide and going, well, wait a minute, I thought it was December. Where did all of these lovely flowers come from? But I suppose, the play takes place over a fair period of time.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I just missed out on a chance to do that, actually, unfortunately. I didn't check my email in time to get a casting notice. There's a group called The Show Must Go Online, and this next Wednesday is Hamlet, and I was going to be they cast me as the ghost of Hamlet's dad, and I didn't get I know, I was just kicking myself. Like, I usually check my Gmail every day, and I just kind of spaced on it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be marvelous. I did Bardolph for their Henry IV Part 2 a couple of weeks ago, and these are incredible things. They bring you know what you should apply for this, because it's a great chance to do Shakespeare online with actors from all over the world. The production I was in, the Chief Justice was from South Africa, the Falstaff was in England, I was in Canada, our King Henry IV was in California. The Falstaff's boy Page was in Minneapolis, and we were doing it online. And they've got all these great tricks of like imagine doing a sword fight online. You can do it. We had a bar brawl online. I was swinging a frying pan, and they were it was absolutely incredible things. The Show Must Go Online. I'm just going to give them a plug because they're doing a Shakespeare play a week in the order in which they were written.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and great stuff. There's a lot of really, thank goodness, there's a lot of really fine stuff available out there. And I'm hoping this will remind people, this is why we have the arts, for things like this, where people say, well, why are we paying artists? Why are we giving them CERB? And going, okay, tell you what, I'll do without my CERB if you do without books, TV, radio, any kind of art on your walls. All you have is yourself and whoever you happen to be sharing your quarantine with. You get nothing else. Yeah. That's why artists are valuable.
Yeah, I actually had the same argument, John. Yeah, yep. I was like, okay, you don't want artists? Turn off your Netflix, turn off your internet, turn off, basically, stop reading books, stop listening to music. Basically sit in a dark room or a light room. You are allowed. Nature isn't necessarily the domain of the artist. We didn't claim it. But you basically can't do anything which involves imagery, writing, anything, sound, music. It's like...
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're valuable. And your point earlier about free fringe is so well taken. I'm loving the fact I can watch the Metropolitan Opera online for free every day. Another plug coming up this Saturday, Agrippina by Handel. I'm a huge fan of the Baroque opera. It was broadcast on the 29th of February, just before the lockdown. They were going to do some rebroadcast performances in April, but that didn't happen. So this Saturday, August the 8th, it's Joyce DiDonato, Kate Lindsay, Yeston Davies, fabulous cast. And although I usually hate this, they've set the opera in the 20th century. And normally, I like my Baroque opera with, I like it in style. I like it in period. Mm-hmm. But this adaptation works brilliantly. And you want to see really great acting as well as great singing. This cast has it in spades. The fact that they can sing, these and not make their face do all these weird things and act, and they're doing it like this in this kind of close-up because it's high def, is remarkable. This is a chance to see really, really great acting as well as great, magnificent singing.
Fantastic.
But anyway, as much as I love having the free op and everything else, you're right. We don't want to give people that, oh well, art's free. I'm working on an adaptation of Tempest right now for 4 actors, and there's a line in there. Stefano, the drunken butler, says, "Oh, this will be a great island where I can have my music for free." And it's like, yeah, it's never free, pal.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. We're professionals. We're good at what we do. The fact that you're prepared to pay us to see us do it under normal circumstances shows that it's worth something, and we can't forget that. We can't forget that. At that same time, art needs to be available to everybody. It needs to be accessible.
Well, I read an article just, I think it was today, and apparently the Edmonton Oilers ice hockey did some sort of, I think it's like a 50-50 ticket or something sale. And before the second quarter, how many parts are in ice hockey? I don't know.
Three periods.
Okay, the second part of sticky punch. Apparently they had made something like 5 million on that already. They had to stop doing this particular thing. On the same day, apparently Edmonton Fringe had a telethon to make money, and I believe they only made 50,000.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is just, come on, guys. It's like, I appreciate people love their sports, but...
Well, and interesting thing is $5 million. Okay, that'll pay the salary of a hockey player. $50,000. When you think that, like, the Fringe generates revenue, this is always a thing people forget. It's like, yeah, you can go to hockey, but much of that money, if the players are American, it doesn't stay in your community. They take it home with them.
Yeah.
If you spend your money seeing, local theater or symphony or art gallery, that money stays in the community, right?
Exactly.
I spend my money in Canada.
Well, let's be honest, we spend most of our money on the Fringe area, eating the first act or drinking or
and the spin-offs, right? Like those audiences who come down to see us, right? Restaurants and the clothing stores and stuff on White Avenue. I remember when White Avenue was just chock-a-block with small individually owned businesses. Yeah. And in the last 15 years, of course, like, like the Gap and the big name kind of corporate things have moved in because, of course, the rents, the landlords and whatever just said, well, we're going to triple the rents because we can make this money. And, fair enough. But the irony is that when the Fringe started, White Avenue no one went to White Avenue. There was one restaurant. It was Uncle Albert's Pancake Place that sadly burned down in 2003. And the rest of White Avenue was just like hardware stores and things that, catered to the area, the Army and Navy. But it wasn't a tourist destination. No one would go to White Avenue. And then the Fringe started. And suddenly White Avenue became a destination. Yeah. And suddenly people started making money who weren't doing theater. They were just running a business. And that's what we do. We are financial pioneers. We're the people who make areas cool. We're the ones who rescue the decrepit, crap part of town. I'm not saying that Old Strathcona was that, but certainly we I think of parts of New York that were, essentially rescued because the artists moved in and went, hey, you know what? This is great. We're going to do our art here. And people go, hey,
that's a very valid point. Yeah.
Yeah. If we were a corporation, we'd be getting all kinds of government write-offs and gifts and taxes because, hey, you're creating business, you're creating jobs. Well, that's what we're doing. We're creating business. We're creating business opportunities. We're making buildings more valuable. We're making land more valuable because suddenly people want to come down to this neighborhood that no one was interested in. All of a sudden, it's cool, it's hip, it's trendy. The people who own the buildings are making money. The people who own the businesses are making money. And then all of a sudden, we're being kicked out because we can't afford the rent anymore.
Yeah.
And we move and we make another place cool. That is a valuable thing we offer. If you want to just look at art in terms of strictly finance and tax benefits and a way to make money, and we do it cheaply, right? We don't need a $10 million sports arena in order to do our thing. all we need is an empty storefront. That's
Here's
all. Yeah,
here's another gentleman just popped on. I don't know if you've maybe met Lothar Malberg.
Mm.
Lothar he's actually saying he was part of those early days of Edmonton Fringe, and he remembers Albert's restaurant.
Yes. Oh golly, it was great. You'd go down there at like about 10 or 11 o'clock when they had the breakfast special on, and all the buskers were there because, of course, they were all staying at the Hotel Strath, which back then was affordable, and then there'd be some of the local performers who were being billeted in the area, and you'd go and you'd have like pancakes and scrambled eggs and bacon for like $3, and the place was just packed, and it was in this lovely old building. It burned down, say, in 2003. It was as much a part of the Fringe as as green onion cakes, as seeing a busker, as seeing a play. It was part of the Fringe experience, and it was a great place to just connect over coffee with people you've been drinking with in steel wheels at 3 a.m. the night before. You'd go and you'd nurse your hangover with a cup of coffee
it's like
scrambled eggs.
The 3 o'clock in the morning steel wheels, and then you're back up at like 7 in the morning, on the dress, showered, you're back out the door at 9, on the street for about 10, and it's like, it's a beautiful burnout that, you know what, you don't even notice it at the time. It's when it finishes and you have a couple of days and all of a sudden it's just your body crashes.
You hit the wall. And I can feel it happening. And go, oh, I've hit the wall. Got to go sleep for a week.
Yeah, I always Edinburgh, for example, one that you haven't done. It's like about 26 days, and I used to work the full thing, and I used to do 2 shows a day. And quite often then do guest spots in other places. I think my record was I did 2 main shows. I did a busking show on the street. And then I think there was a couple of days I did something like 7 shows in one day. 3 mine and 4 just get like 15, 20-minute guest slots.
You and Jem Rolls, I tell you, I just amazed.
Oh, he's a hardworking laddie, yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. There was a lot of, yeah.
But that's Edinburgh. I don't do that anymore, sadly. Yeah. I would love to keep that sort of going because I get bored. If you ever know me, I always used to quote, and I will quote it badly, that Arthur Conan Doyle line about Sherlock Holmes, give me, give
me what, give me the most, it was actually in Sign of 4, it was Ellie's line, not mine. Give me the most abstruse cryptogram, the most intricate analysis, something, give me work.
Yeah, because when I'm not doing anything, my problem is I get myself into mischief when I'm bored.
Yeah.
And of course, I need to, and that's one thing I still am adapting to the Fringes over here. I know you have to flyer in between, and it's hard work, but I always feel I could be doing more. I would happily do show, guest spot, and just go crazy. That's why I was excited this year. Potential of 3 shows a day. I was so excited.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, for me, it's the balance is always, okay, I'm going to do my solo show. I'm going to do a show with Ken or with someone else. But I have to have the time to see shows because I never went to theater school. Well, I did go to theater school. I just never lasted long. And then they just kept, booting me out the door, skipping down the road like a stone across a pond. So one of the essential things about Fringe for me is seeing other artists and because that's my education. That's my arts education is going to see other people. And so I try and squeeze in 3 to 4 shows a day in addition to the 2 I'm doing, if I can. And generally, like at the end of Winnipeg, which is 12 days, I'm usually coming close to having seen 40 shows.
Nice.
In Edmonton, because it's only 10 days, and because it's just a bigger physical area. Like I'm usually going from La Cité, having to hop on the shuttle bus, and then coming into Fringe, Maine to do my own show. Like I'm losing a little more time out of the day, and so I usually only manage about 30 shows there. But seeing that is so important and so vital. And I mean, like the Jekyll and Hyde thing, having seen that fellow do it, go, oh, that's a really interesting take on that. Okay, I'll store that in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Or it's like seeing Screwtape and going, no, wrong, that's totally wrong. But because I hated what you did, I now know what's going to work for me when I do it.
Yeah.
I always say the worst thing you can say to an artist was, it was okay. You know, I mean, I'd like people to love what I do. If they hate what I do, well, at least that's still a reaction. At least I moved them to some sort of reaction from is the worst thing you can say to an artist. That and
Yeah.
how you learn all those lines, because that's kind of a cop out. But if you really like it, I've gone to shows I've just viscerally detested. I remember seeing one in Manitic. It was just awful, and people kept leaving. There were like a million blackouts, and people kept leaving in them. By the end of the first act, I was like alone in the row, and the place had been sold out, and I just didn't come back after the intermission. I thought, no, I just can't do this. I'm gonna run up on stage and start killing people. But in retrospect, it did get a reaction, a very strong reaction from me. So there's that. I've gone to shows that I recognize were in fact quite good. I just didn't like them. And so anytime someone says, well, what do you think of so-and-so? I say, okay, let me preface this by saying there was a standing ovation at the end. Everyone around me was clearly digging what was going on. I didn't like it, and here's why. But I wish reviewers could be that honest. I remember one time I got a 2-star review for a show that was sold out, standing ovation, people laughing throughout. It was a comedy, so that was good. And the reviewer just said, too clever to be funny. I didn't get it. Okay. So you're a moron who didn't understand it. Own up to that. Or if you can't own up and say, I'm a moron, at least say, everyone around me was laughing. There was a standing ovation at the end. Clearly, something is going on here that just didn't resonate with me. Just be that honest.
But the reviewers, most of them are just, I'm going to say it, they're assholes. We are very lucky in Calgary. We have a wonderful gentleman called Louis Hobson.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Louis is one of those reviewers that I don't even think he gives a star system. He does a write-up, but he gives the pros and cons, and it's lovely. Mm-hmm. I remember him reviewing a show from the Calgary Fringe once, and he basically said, to sum it up, he was like, we went through the points, and then he said, you know what? It wasn't my cup of tea, but everyone else in the audience seemed to enjoy it, so it's maybe worth going to see.
Yeah. Just do that. I won't go so far as to say that reviewers are assholes. I partly because I do know some of them personally, but more to the point, I know the ones who are like Colin McLean, God bless him, right? Who loves theater and is really good at his job. And if Colin doesn't like something, he tells you why he didn't like it and what was wrong. And that is perfectly valid. And he knows theater. The problem is that we don't that at Fringe time, because they try and cover as many shows as they can. You've got people walking into a theater who aren't theater goers. And it would be like you writing about hockey. How many thingies are there in a hockey game?
Sticky, puck, hit, pit. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, imagine if you wrote that as a column, on the sports page of the Calgary Herald. People would be outraged, and rightly so. So why can we not please, when you're going to send, the sports writer and the science writer and these people never go to theater, can you please at least say, this is so-and-so, normally they write this column for us. So someone go, oh, well, this person didn't like the play, but on the other hand, they're not a theater reviewer, so maybe I should weigh that on the balance.
Yeah. But I will make a disclaimer, John. The reason I say assholes is because the only experience I've really had in Calgary is Edmonton. And apparently the people that go into review in Edmonton either hate theatre or have just been hired as a summer job. So they're not, shall we say, what I traditionally knew as somebody who trained in the craft of reviewing. I've had a couple. I mean, I was very fortunate. Like somebody who worked in the newspaper had witnessed this. But I had a lassie who came into one of my shows, and I'll never forget this. Imagine you were my audience. Okay, everyone's sitting there. She sat over here by herself and proceeded just to sit on her phone chewing gum.
Wow.
And her review was beautiful. She listened too clearly about the first 5 minutes of the show, because that's all a review is about.
Yeah, yeah. It's really tricky. You know, you've got oh golly, we had a review for the Bertie Wooster show, and it was at the end. Ken and I both read it, and we went, actually, there's not a complete sentence in this review. It was for it wasn't for the Journal. It was for View. Is that the weekly in Edmonton? It's View, right?
The View, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And of course, it was some kid, I guess, who was going to I mean, I think she was older than high school. She's presumably college age, but just again couldn't put a sentence together, and again probably didn't go see theater much. So it was it was very clear from the tone of the review that this was something she wasn't really familiar with. And I thought, oh, on the one hand, you want reviews because you want to try and sell the show, but on the other hand, a bad review or an incomprehensible review is in some ways worse than useless, because if that's all anyone has to go on, they're going to go, well, I don't really understand what this is about. I think I'll give it a miss.
Yeah, I'm very lucky. I feel that the Edmonton reviewers, and shall I say the Edmonton audiences, have got into the state of mind that they kind of go, yes, there's some people that focus on the star and don't read the review. But for example, my first year was beautiful. I got a terrible review of a very well-known, very disliked reviewer in Edmonton, but it sold out my show.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I really like Edmonton audiences because, I mean, the Fringe has been around longer than many performers have been alive. And so you've got this real, and Edmonton owns that festival, right? Like it's as much a part of the, really as the Oilers are in some ways, like there's a real sense of ownership there. And that's great to see. You get the same thing. I mean, the bigger festivals. Winnipeg is another one, right? Where the city. I used to stay with a fellow who took his vacation at the Fringe, and that was his. And he wasn't the only one. I mean, I met my first year in Edmonton. I met someone who came up from Montana. Would come up every year to the Edmonton Fringe. But I was saying, but when Winnipeg's the same way, right? People come in. I used to meet a guy who drove in from Portage, he and his wife, and you can always spot the old Fringers because they've got the Fringe T-shirts from years past.
Ah, yeah, okay.
Like I think I was looking through my collection. I think the oldest Fringe T-shirt I have is 1996 because I just don't tend to buy the shirts. But you'll see some of these guys, and there'll be shirts that are from like the late 1980s, and that come out lovingly once a year, and they'll put it on when they go to the festival. And these are the guys who'll see 60 shows. And I should say, I'm saying guys, and I should say people because it's women and men.
We'll use guys as generic. I mean, most people, I do that as well. I use it as a generic term.
Yeah, I tend to, and I know that it's sort of people going, oh, is it really? Of course, it's of course guys, and as in Guy Fawkes, right? We have the audience, and I've had audiences like that, right? Where it's I know you're out there, I can smell you breathing, but how is the audience? Oh, remarkably lifelike.
Well, you see, I always freak my audiences out because I have my house lights up.
Yes.
I always like to see, and a lot of people don't like I have been told that people don't understand. They get really confused because they come in and I'm standing there chatting away to them with the lights up, and they're like, when's the show start? And it's kind of like, well, it kind of already has. It's just I haven't officially hit my time yet.
yeah, exactly. I really like doing certain shows with the lights up. Well, of course, that was the custom in the 19th century.
Yes.
So I used to do. I try and do Christmas Carol wherever possible with the lights up because I want to be able to connect to my audience and see them. It's very disconcerting when I'm in a real theater, and they lower the house lights and it's going, oh, nuts. I know there are people out there, but I'm mostly just seeing
that whitewash, as I call it. I just hate it.
Yeah.
I despise it. Now, John, you actually mentioned something that I'm kind of wanting to go back to. There's a couple more questions, but sure. I'm going to try and at least get one, if not two more of my questions in as well. You actually mentioned your education in the theatre. Now, mentoring and meeting somebody, this is the next kind of one of the phases on the journey. People always meet that wise sage, that mentor. It sounds like you're maybe one of those people who, a bit like me, you maybe had a few influences, but you kind of took your own path. Is that the case? And if not, was there anybody who really influenced you in the past to get into this line of work?
Well, yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I saw Emlyn Williams, the great Emlyn Williams, doing his one-man Dickens show. I saw that a couple of times. That was a big influence on me, although I didn't know him or even ever speak to him personally. Oh, golly. Well, Ken Brown, of course, with whom I've had the great pleasure and privilege to work. Ken taught theater for years and was a working actor from early on, and of course, just working with him has been a huge help in education in and of itself. But golly, I think the people I've watched perform over the years, Stuart Lemoyne's company, Teatro, and there's a company, if you really want to look at, there's a company style there, especially when they're doing Stuart's plays, that I know has influenced me on some level. Watching, whenever possible, I want to see someone do a show I've done or do a role I've done, because that teaches me an immense amount. I picked up most of the accents I know from watching Masterpiece Theatre. But in terms of one-on-one, no. I mean, most of my theater teachers gave me up as a bad job pretty early on.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and so it really has been a matter of mostly, I guess, auditing the course. Where I've had to go and just watch someone across the footlights do something, and then think about, okay, why did that work, or why didn't that work? What can I take away from that moment? Yeah. I have a master's in theater history, and so I'm used to research and reading and thinking like an academic. So I think that's certainly helped as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. So a couple of questions coming in from Kat, actually. I'm going to ask them both. So the first one is, just a bit of background on Kat. She runs the Paranormal Heart podcast. So she interviews guests who have paranormal experience and things like that. So she's asking, have you ever had a paranormal experience? Is that something you even believe in?
Well, I certainly acknowledge that there are things out there we cannot explain. Someone once, I think it was Arthur C. Clarke, who said, science... magic is just science to people who don't know how it works. And I'm certainly, outside normal experiences, absolutely. Of course, those are. What the explanation for them is, I don't pretend to know. I'm quite prepared. Dickens famously said, I don't believe in ghosts, but I'm scared of them. And I won't go so far as to say I don't believe in ghosts. I suspect, though, that whatever a ghost is something that we're explaining as best we can, as we understand at the moment. I think if we ever do actually figure it out or nail it down, there'll be, we were mostly right, or we were mostly wrong. We had this bit figured out, but not the rest of it. I have never had a paranormal experience myself. What I would describe as one. I know many people who have, and in a number of cases, very sober, hard-headed, if I can't touch it, smell it, feel it, it doesn't exist, people who said, this happened to me, and I have no idea how it happened, but I know that this happened. And it's like, okay. For a while, I was doing research on theater ghosts, and you get the best theater ghost stories, not from the actors, but from the technicians. Yeah. Because they're the ones who are in there after hours. And again, a lot of these guys are, hard-headed, no nonsense. Look, this thing happened to me, and I don't understand how, if it wasn't a ghost, I don't know what it was, kind of thing. So I'm quite prepared to acknowledge that there's this kind of stuff going on. And also, I just love me a good ghost story.
Yeah. Wonderful. Now, Kat's second question is actually quite an interesting one. It's similar to the last question I like to ask, but this one's a bit more specific. specific. We shall try. This one's more Pacific. It's a vast thing. It's
Yes, yes. But
she's
people,
actually asking if you have any advice for someone in their 50s who'd like to get into theatre.
marry rich. I would say marry rich is a good one. Or yeah,
It took me a moment.
the wow. It's well, golly, learn to live very simply. Is a big one. Find out what you love about the art form you want to do, and just love it as hard as you possibly can. Because that may be the only reward, kind of material reward you're going to get is I love what I'm doing so much, but I'm living in one room with the bathroom down the hall kind of thing. It's unfortunate. The reality in this country of doing art is that the odds are extremely good that you'll be poor. So accept that going in, and plan on that. Plan on being poor, and be okay with yourself, and be okay with the fact that people are going to think you're nuts, that people are going to weirdly enough expect you to do it for free or next to no money, but know in yourself that the reason you're doing it is because you love it, and it's the only thing that's really going to make you feel happy, and then you'll be fine, and then you really will be, because that kind of love and passion, people respond to that, and they recognize it, and that's and they respect it, and they really do. Not everybody will understand why you're doing it, and that's fine, and just kind of go in knowing that as well. Yeah.
That's that. I love it. You know what, John? That has to be probably the best. It's like answer I've heard, and the bleakest answer I've ever heard, but I love it because you're saying in this country, so Canada, very challenging for someone who's come over here. Back in the UK, challenging from the other side of things because it's such a small country and it's so saturated.
Yeah.
Basically, I will back John's comments up there, Kat. If you're wanting to move into any performance, even part-time, full-time, it's basically a gladiatorial arena out there, and you kind of have to be prepared to be, shall we say, meager with your finances.
and my goodness, have surround yourself with really good friends.
Oh yes.
People who will support what you're doing, and that support can be anything from, hey, why don't you come over and have dinner with me tonight, to just, yes, of course I'll come see your show or your gallery opening or whatever it's going to be. There's a terrific book that you can probably get at the library called The Artist's Way. It came out like 25 years ago.
I've got a copy of that. Wonderful book.
And by all means, check out a copy from your local library, or if you can afford it, buy it. I'm sure it's still in print. You might be able to find it secondhand for that matter. In fact, I'm sure you could. I keep forgetting there's a thing called the internet now.
Yes. Another good book to get, if I can add to this, and it's a weird one, but Amanda Palmer's The Art of Asking.
Oh, yes. No, I've heard about that and haven't read it. Yeah, she's married to Neil Gaiman. And she's a musician.
Yeah, I think they're not now, or they're in the process, sadly, of that changing.
She's in the market again.
Yeah.
Twirling his mustache.
She is lovely. She's wonderful.
She really is, and she's so talented. Yeah, absolutely. I've heard very good things about that. And I guess, you'll find too that once you start, I think it was Goethe who said, as soon as you begin to put a plan in motion, it's like the universe kind of falls into place around you. I can't tell you the number of times where I've said, you know what, I want to do this. I don't quite know how I'm going to get there yet, but this is the intent. And by golly, things do in fact start to happen, and you start meeting people who will be colleagues, and they'll help you figure things out, or they'll invite you to perform with them, or to exhibit with them, or whatever. All these things will absolutely happen. But
And a comment that's come in: build a good character and grow the fans.
yeah,
It's kind of very important. And actually, that's an interesting attitude is a huge thing. You know, we're kind of saying, oh, it's tough, but you have to, you generally have to have this, I'll use a weird term, an insane attitude of
yeah,
just knowing that you have to do it and that you will achieve something. And I think a very important thing for anybody wanting to go into performance, and John, I don't know how you feel about this, is you don't need to be a superstar.
no,
You don't need to hit that level. There is this wonderful level in between which makes you, I shall say, financially comfortable when you have followers, you are working, and basically you're having a happy life. And you might never get in the newspapers, you might never be on TV, or you might never be a movie star, but you're still doing what you love. And that's
yeah,
and it's all about love.
yeah,
It's that passion and drive.
yeah, exactly, and that really will keep you going. It really will.
Yeah.
It is also useful if you've got if you know you've got a good like backup job. And I know I used to be a guy in the Fringe. I can't remember his name now. This is early '90s, and he was a dentist, and he was coming and doing shows. And I said, "Don't tell me. Let me guess. You went into dental college, and your mother said, 'Well, dear, as long as you have theater to fall back on, I guess it'll be okay.'" But yes, so there's that. It never hurts to have a side gig. In fact, it's really pretty much essential
Yeah.
for most.
Or fingers in different pies, even in the
Yeah,
performance world. I know a
absolutely.
lot of guys that do multiple things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so,
absolutely.
John, you are 2 hours ahead of me. Is that right?
One.
One now. That's right, because you're
Yeah,
not out
yeah.
east.
I'm on Central.
You're in the middle. Good, good. We're nearly hitting 2 hours, and I was planning and trying to keep these shows to the hour and a half now, and I've never done it. And I love the fact that it doesn't happen because I just get chatting. But I don't want to keep you for too much longer. So what I'd like to do is move on to our 10 questions.
Okay.
Now, these 10 questions have been sent in by the audience at the beginning. They are silly, they're fun, but
But
they can be used as a psychological assessment, which may or may not be used by the government to one day kick in or not kick in your door. Okay, are you ready?
that again. Yes. All right.
Right, okay. What's the worst job you've ever done?
That would be telemarketing for the Toronto Star, trying to get people to subscribe to the Toronto Star. Just cold calling is the worst.
You know what? You could have just left it at telemarketing because I think most of the audience, like myself, just went, oh.
Yeah. I am naturally, believe it or not, a rather shy person, and I don't like. I just feel so rude calling someone up out of the blue.
Yeah.
And they could hear it in my voice, like they could hear the sort of I'm really the apologetic desperation of it. Yeah. Oh, I just hated that job. I think I worked at it for half a day, and I was like, no, no,
I
no.
can sympathize with that.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
You're stuck in an elevator with one person. Who
Hmm.
is it?
Anyone from history, or do they have to be
Anyone.
alive?
It doesn't matter. Live, dead, made up. No, preferably someone that existed.
Oh, okay. I was going to say because Doctor Who would be my
Oh, well,
go.
that's a wonderful one. Yeah.
I think the Tom Baker Doctor Who. He was always my favorite.
Oh, I love my Tom Baker, Sylvester McCoy, and David Tennant.
Yes.
End of story.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, it would be Tom Baker's Doctor Who.
Wonderful. If it was a real, shall we
Real
just say a real person? I'm
Um,
intrigued.
Golly, to meet. I think. I think William Shakespeare. I think
Oh,
William Shakespeare would be a fascinating person to talk to, and also I'd like to hear what his accent sounds like.
Wonderful. And I also ask him, did he write all the plays?
Yeah. How much was collaboration,
Yeah.
and
Because there's always been that rumor that, in fact, it was done under a.
exactly. And if Shakespeare isn't available, I'll take Christopher Marlowe, because that would be the. I mean, the guy was a spy in addition to being a playwright.
Amazing.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And
I
did
only
he?
found out about him recently, actually. That sounds terrible, but yeah.
Yeah. And did he really die in that? Because there's now apparently some question that know that his death was staged,
Mm-hmm.
so he could go undercover and do whatever.
Wow.
Anyway, yeah. So that'd be it.
Amazing. Great answers. Okay. Garden gnomes,
Mhm.
as in the ones you put in your garden.
Yes.
How do you feel about them?
I always liked the story about the garden gnome that was stolen and taken around the world, and they took pictures of him, of the garden gnome, and the garden gnome would sending like postcards home, and to all be, and then finally like for 6 months, and then one day they got a postcard from the garden gnomes. Oh, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and sure enough, next morning he was there. I think garden gnomes are just wonderfully fun. But that's what I think what they're best for is playing elaborate practical jokes with them.
I love it. Yeah, nice, nice. Okay, what's your favorite kitchen utensil and why?
A really good cutting knife. I worked in a restaurant for quite a while, and and the chefs, swear by their knives, and they're right. I don't enjoy cooking. I really don't. I'm not particularly good at it. But if I am doing something, a really good sharp knife, you can do so much with it. That or a really good blender, right, for making soups and smoothies and stuff.
Nice. Yeah, good, 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 good. I've realized I like tongs.
Oh, tongs. Why
Tongs are just so easy. Like, see, when you don't have them, you don't realize like how much you miss them until you get a set. And you're like, oh, I can lift things. And oh, I love it. Flip my bacon without burning my fingers. I am that guy. Okay.
The tip of the knife to do that. Yeah.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
I was performing on the other side.
Oh, there is the ego just leapt through the screen. What superpower would you want, and would you use it for good or evil?
I would like to. I'd like to fly. What can I say? I mean, who wouldn't want to fly? And I'd probably use it for convenience. It'd be a lot easier to get around. Festivals, grocery shopping, and would be so much more fun. Travel. I mean, I never have to fly on a plane again. Yeah, I'd like to be able to fly at sort of supersonic speed.
Okay, excellent. Now I need to add: would you need to incorporate a little bit of strength, because I'm thinking of luggage and velocity?
Oh well, actually, I travel very light. Yeah, I don't know. I posted a picture a couple of years ago of about to go on Fringe tour, and I had a backpack and a piece of carry-on luggage, and that was it. Because I don't drive, my rule for Fringe touring is the show must fit in a suitcase, ideally a piece of carry-on. Which is why, of course, costume is so important, because that's usually what that means. It's a costume and a chair. No, I travel fairly light, but yes, now that you mention it, probably a little bit of extra strength would be nice. Just in case I find a Chippendale chair on special somewhere and want to take it home.
Oh yeah. Well, that's actually an interesting thing. I often travel in my kilt if I'm going to a bigger event now, because the kilt can take up the whole luggage.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a bulky piece of fabric.
Yeah, we've got to pack. We've got to be sensible packers. And the other good thing about the kilt is, folks, I'm just going to add this: there's certain things you don't need to pack when you're wearing a kilt. Saves a lot of luggage room. Okay, moving on from.
Yes.
Pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
Yes, and a great Canadian tradition, of course. The pineapple Hawaiian pizza invented in Canada, and I'm almost people like anchovies on pizza. And actually anchovy and pineapple, because it's very salty, very sweet. It's killer.
See, I'm not a fan of anchovies, but I do like black olives on my pizza.
Yes.
So if I have pineapple, I love black olives on it, because you get that sweet and salty. It's fantastic. I can't believe
we've never gone out for pizza.
Mainly because we're probably too inebriated by that point in the evening.
Yeah. Well, and one thing about the Edmonton Fringe, there is not like a pizza place, like a good pizza place within. Well, there's that slice place on Calgary Trail, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Slice. which if you really need like a carbohydrate fix to soak up the beer is you can pop in there.
There is the Chianti's restaurant, but I don't actually know if they do pizza.
They don't do pizza. Chianti's for years. I used to have their polo arrosto. It was a half roast chicken because my first Fringe dinner, that was what it was. And for years that was all I ever had. And they had these great like grilled vegetables and half roast chicken and a potato. Fantastic meal. And they got rid of it. But I still love Chianti's. To me, it is Fringe. And of course, they're a big supporter of the Fringe.
Oh
too.
yeah, they're
I
fantastic.
have been since year one. So yeah, I like that kind of, and I always tell them I'm a performer. Well, first of all, you get a deal, but secondly,
Yes.
like yes, we love you guys. We come in here to give back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like it. Yep. Who
Yeah.
should play you in a biopic of your life?
Well, ideally me because I need the work, but if not me, um, golly, it always comes down to Brad Pitt or Simon Callow. Um,
I don't know the latter.
Simon Callow, he's the actor. Do you see Shakespeare in Love? He was the master of the Queen's Revels who was having it out with Shakespeare's girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Right.
Yeah,
Totally.
yeah,
As soon as you say
like-
that, I now know him.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he's this great English actor. He created the role of Amadeus in the play by Peter Shaffer.
Yes.
He's at least 10 years older than I am and considerably heavier. But I'd like to think that I'll age kind of into being like this sort of great, he's this beautiful voice, and he's
Oh yeah.
great Rabelaisian presence. He'll play me in the later, and BradTt will play me in the early days.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because people never tell me I look like Brad Pitt, so that
No.
seems a
Oh
natural.
yeah. You've got it. Yeah.
No one has ever said that to me, so I think it's a good thing. But we'll stick a mustache on him; he'll be fine.
I don't know. You might. You could look like Brad Pitt.
Oh, bless you! But he's actually a much better actor than people give him credit for.
I actually have seen him in a couple of pieces that are great. Yeah.
Yeah. I really like him.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
Okay. Where are we? Okay. This one is the most serious question of them all.
All right.
Which is the correct way to hang the toilet roll?
Oh, paper out.
Paper out.
Yeah. Paper closest because it's easier to reach over and grab. Your finger doesn't have. You don't have to like scrape your hand against the wall of the toilet or the wall of the stall. So yeah, paper on the outside, easier to grab. Much more.
Don't worry, the government will no longer be kicking in your door.
Excellent.
Okay, last two questions.
Mhm.
Where are we? What is your musical guilty pleasure?
It's country music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched that fabulous series by Ken Burns on country music, and I'd always liked traditional folk and music very much, but country was always there's your cheating heart will tell on you is a cornball lyric, but it's also true, and that song is a great earworm, and I. It was a fascinating series, and the more I listen to the music, the more I'm going, I really kind of like this, and it's not music. I don't even have it on my computer. I don't have it on my iPad, but when I hear it, I kind of like it, and periodically something will come into my, or I'll look it up on YouTube. I'll like Dolly Parton's Mule Skinners.
Yeah.
Right. Love it. There's just something that's just so joyous, and it's got that kind of rawness that traditional folk can sometimes have, and she's just a great performer. So
Yes.
yeah, that's definitely my guilty pleasure is country music.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm reasonably partial to it. I ebbs and flows.
Mm.
Okay, last excuse me.
Mhm.
Last question. Okay. You're in a bar. I know this is hard for you to imagine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're in a bar and all of a sudden you realize you're about to get in a fight. What is the theme music that starts playing in your head?
Yeah, they call him the Streak, fastest thing on 2 feet. It's a novelty song from the 70s. Yeah, I think it would be something comic and something music to run away by.
I see. You are the first guest that has admitted that, and I love that, John, because not everyone. I always say, I've always joked mine would be something like Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
Yes, which I'm just learning on the ukulele, by the way.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I've got one of the new one-man shows I've got coming up, because I've got a couple being commissioned. I was thinking about it. I thought, okay, it's a Jeeves and Wooster adaptation. It needs something a little extra. Oh, of course, the wonderful, talented Penny Ashton, as always, shows me the way. It's going to be a one-person musical with me playing 20s music on the ukulele. Because
Fantastic.
well, Bertie actually owns, in one of the books, he has a banjo ukulele, which he plays very badly. And at the end of the story, of course, Jeeves, having gotten Bertie out of the Mulligatawny once again, Bertie, as a peace offering, gives up the banjo ukulele. So yes, it would be something to run away to, being played on the ukulele. I'm some people say I'm a lover, not a fighter. I'm a runner, not a fighter.
We are. We're gentlemen who just like to have fun and make people happy.
Exactly.
There's no need for violence.
No, exactly. And Tiptoe Through the Tulips is a lot of fun to learn.
Excellent. Well, that is our 10 silly questions. So thank you very much, John. This is bringing us to the end of our chat. And this has been fantastic. And I must apologise. I've kept you longer than I meant to this evening.
I've had so much fun. Thank you.
But as always, my guests are just so enchanting and fun, and the stories are wonderful, and I just get lost. I'm a terrible interviewer, I'm discovering, because I just like to listen and enjoy.
Well, that makes you a great interviewer.
Oh, right. Okay. I don't know. I don't control an interview very well. But the last question I wish to ask you.
Yes.
You've kind of answered one variant of it, but is there any words of wisdom? What would be your Yoda-esque words of wisdom to pass on to anybody coming into the performing arts? Is there any advice you could give?
This is actually based on my real life experience, and that is, never move in with anyone on the first date. You will be sorry.
Okay.
I was young. I was foolish.
I love that. I love that. That's a beautiful piece of advice.
Yeah.
Just all around for anyone, for all aspects of life in the performing arts. Never move in with the first show and the first date, because it's going to happen. You're going to fall in love when you perform.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, as you just pointed out, I mean, you can use that as a metaphor for so many things,
I love it. Oh, somebody did ask one thing though.
Yes. Oh yes.
They wanted to hear your Scottish accent.
Oh, I really want to do that.
It's okay. I'll try not to.
Well, no, it's just fine. It's actually, it's something like this. And I'm telling you, I used to work with an Irish lass at the restaurant named Niamh, and I have a bad habit, because I had a lot of speech therapy when I was a kid, because I had a wee bit of a stammer, and I would be talking with Niamh for like a couple of minutes, and I would just start going into her accent. It was Dublin, all right? So it's very easy. And the first time I said, Niamh, I'm going to tell you, I'm not taking the piss. I'm not making fun of you. I really honestly can't help it. It's just, I was taught to imitate certain sounds when they would teach me how to speak. And so now if there's just certain, and it's only certain accents will do that I'll just pick it up and just start to go with it. And she, oh no, it's fine. And whenever I wasn't around her, I was, it's my normal voice, but she now started to talk, and people come, what are you doing? So my Scots accent is, you see, I was worried actually I'd be doing that with you, that, oh great, we'll get about 3 minutes into this, and I'm going to start sounding like I'm trying to be, Calum Lykan with curly mustache and hair. But that didn't happen, which is interesting. And actually, when I think about it, even when I were drinking together, that never happened. So I don't quite know why, because normally yours is an accent. I'd just sort of pick up and run with it, because it's just beautiful.
Well, mine's a bit gruffer, and a lot of people, when they're doing a Scottish accent, they do the softer.
Yeah.
The ones they are kind of more expected through Hollywood has generated these weird lilting ones, when in fact Scotland is a very guttural, aggressive, it's almost akin to Klingon. If we're going to go sci-fi, it's like basically put us in that kind of context, because we do. One of my dear friends said that when he taught in Japan, some of his students went over to Scotland on holiday, and when they came back, he asked them what they thought of the accent, and their exact comments were, "That was someone speaking. Those were words. It sounded like a dog growling at us."
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because, Scots, of course, as like as a separate dialect from English, has been getting a fair bit of attention, I'm happy to say. And I remember one time seeing someone had written the dagger speech from Macbeth in how would it look in Scots, and I couldn't tell you now. I just remember the word hand was hannet, Hannit.
Well, that's where the Scots, the dialect.
Mhm.
Robert Burns obviously is the largest component of that that
In-
people
in the
know,
body,
and that's actually the area I was raised. So the old Scots dialect was very common. Obviously, not in its heavier form that, say, Burns would use.
Yeah.
But I still use a couple of words from the Ayrshire, the West Coast area, where it kind of was very dominant.
Yes.
So when you talk, I was actually a Scots language ambassador for a while.
Oh, really?
Back home, yes, going into schools.
Ooh, that's
Yes, I know.
That,
But yes, no, it's that I must find that dagger speech. Then that would be interesting to read.
yeah.
Because what I love about it, it's just very quickly before we wrap up, because I'm just laughing. I love it when people who don't quite get it, and I'm going to not generalize, but I shall say south of Canada,
Yeah. And north of
when they
Mexico?
try to write in what they think is old Scots,
Yes.
it's so painful. It's so painful to read. And I'm not saying that's everyone, but I obviously follow, I've got a lot of kind of things like the Scottish pages and all that and things like that I follow. And when you see a lot of people who, shall we say, believe that they are related to William Wallace or Mary Queen of Scots or someone like that, and then they try and speak in the type in the dialect, it's like, oh no, please stop.
Yeah. Well, this is the same place that thinks that we all say oot and a boot.
Well, you do say oot in a boot.
In certain regions of Canada,
Yes.
yeah.
Apparently I became Canadian when I walked into a wall and said sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. You can get your citizenship card in the mail, and you'll be able to vote.
Excellent, marvelous.
Yeah.
John, this has been amazing. This is it's been an absolute bloody pleasure to see your face again.
Oh, ditto, my friend.
I have missed. There's a few people that I always miss every year. If I'm not at the Fringes, and you are one, because we have had some wonderful chats and times and just hangouts, and I do miss that. So this has been wonderful. I want to thank you for coming on and being the first guest of our Fringe month.
Woo!
Is there anywhere any of the viewers can see you or follow you? I've got your Facebook page, but are you doing any other live shows online that people can tune in and enjoy?
Well, I was telling you about the Shakespeare. This show must go online, and I said I missed the Hamlet, and they were up and said, "Oh, we're sorry, but listen, we're casting for Twelfth Night, which is be the next show. So are you interested? Are you free?" And I said, "Sure." So I suspect I'll be in that. That would be Wednesday, August the 19th. I guess it is. Yeah. Today's what? Today's Thursday.
Yes,
Wednesday, August the 19th.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'll be doing, but I expect I suspect I'll be in that. And these are, as I say, quite lovely productions, and a great chance to sort of see Shakespeare while we can't go out to theatre. And do please go to the Edmonton Fringe and buy a ticket for the 1001 Nights. Please buy a virtual ticket for the 1001 Nights, because some of that money will come to me. And Wonderful. It will also give me a chance to be entered into the draw for a free spot next year. And I really would like to make this 1001 Nights thing go, because I just think the idea of it is just so outrageous.
I like it. It sounds like a fantastic concept.
Well, it's just a matter of finding two other actors who are crazy enough to want to do a 6-hour. Well, is effectively a 6-hour show, because it's each part is different, and take the chance on, by the way, we're passing a hat at the end of the day. Like there isn't a fixed ticket price. And I realized, like, whoever would be performing with me would would hope be doing their own show as well. So
we might have to chat.
we might, and we do need to chat about the Norse myths.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we need to get a few shows. I think we should just do a lot of shows. We should populate the world with John and Calum shows.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what the world needs now.
Oh, it does. And yeah, it needs a gentleman and a loud Scotsman.
A gentleman and a loud. Oh, there's a coming in. A gentleman and a loud Scotsman present. It sounds like the opening to a joke. A gentleman and a loud Scotsman walk into a bar.
Yes.
A gentleman and a loud Scotsman walk into a theater presents.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I love this. The creation begins. John,
yes.
It has been amazing. We need to catch up and we need to stay in touch and obviously organise the initial show we'd always spoke about many years ago.
Yes, indeed.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I want to thank you again. My audience, thank you for the comments. There's been some lovely comments. A lot of people saying goodbye, thanking you. So they have enjoyed spending time with you today, as I have. I'm now going to pop you into the green room. So if you basically just wait for me there. You'll find pineapple pizza. You'll find M&Ms with the basically W's removed. You will find some single malts and lots of other treats. I'm going to sign off and I'll catch up with you in a moment, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, John Huston, thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks for being here.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for joining me again, folks. John is a wonderful guy. I mean, what can I say? He's a delight to chat to. I love hanging about with him. For those that know him personally, you understand that. If you've ever seen him perform, you'll understand he's just enchanting and fun and a wonderful performer. He's thoroughly enjoyable to watch, and tonight's show has just been great. So thank you very much for joining me on this episode of A Scotsman Talks 2. If anyone wishes to be a guest, please drop me an email at calumlycanstoryteller@gmail.com. I have guests for this month and into September, but basically I'm always looking for more, so keep me going. I've still got a big list, but I'm compiling, I'm gathering. Lothar, who was on earlier, he's one guy that I need to get on. Lothar will be a delightful guest to have, so we've got lots of opportunity. Our next guest on our Fringe Spectacular happens next Thursday, the 13th, and it's actually a gentleman I've never met. I'm looking forward to it. I know his name, Kurt Fitzpatrick. I was about to say Fitzgerald. That's because we were talking about all these wonderful authors. Kurt Fitzpatrick, a wonderful Fringe performer. I haven't met him. I've watched some of his stuff. He's funny. He's entertaining. He's also had some amazing challenges in his life. So he is the guest, same time, same place, next week. So please do join me on our next episode of A Scotsman Talks 2 and our Fringe special. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining. Have a lovely night. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you all next week. And do remember, on Monday, I had to delay it, but our first episode of A Scotsman Talks About kicks off, and it is the Loch Ness or Nessie episode. When I decided to do that, I didn't realise how much research was involved. She's a big subject. She's a big lady. She's a monstrously big lady, and I'm looking forward to chatting about her, giving you some stories and history, and seeing what questions pop up. So before Kurt, join me 8 o'clock Monday for A Scotsman Talks About Nessie. Have a nice night, folks.